Hi guys, today you're going to learn the 4 basic stitches. We're going to start with the basting stitch. You guys will have a square piece of fabric to create your stitches on. I'm going to use a different type of fabric that is long enough to show you a full run of stitches. Alright, for this first stitch, you're going to come up through the back. We never go through the front of the fabric with the needle to start off. So I've come all the way through and pulled tightly. And now I'm ready to start my stitch. I want my stitches to be long with big gaps in between. So I'm going to do a first big stitch about the width of my pinky. And then when I come back up from the back of the fabric, I want that gap to be about the same size as my stitch. Once you get the hang of it, you can do a few stitches through the fabric before you pull your string through. This makes it a little bit faster if you feel like you're ready for that. Just make sure you pull it tightly when you start to make another stitch. So now I'm going to go to the end of my fabric. And when I get to the end, I'm going to tie it off with a knot. So pull that tightly. You can see on the back, your stitches will look exactly the same. And in the back is where we're going to tie your knot. So this type of stitch is called a basting stitch, and this is sometimes used to create ruffles like I just showed you. You can stretch it back out after you've tried your ruffle, and then we will start your knot. So for our knot, we want our knot to be as close to the fabric as possible. So I'm going to hold with my left hand and create a circle with my yarn. So you can see I created a circle. Now I'm going up through the circle with my needle and thread. So you can see how it goes behind and up through the center. And I'm going to lay it down because I'm going to take my pointer finger to hold this circle while I pull. So I'm holding it straight down onto the fabric and I'm going to pull slowly. And this helps that knot to stay really close to my fabric. Alright, once you're ready, you can take some scissors and trim it off, and you have done your basting stitch. Okay, before we begin our other stitch, we want to tie off the remainder of the thread. So you have enough left of your thread for the next row of stitches. We're going to do number 2, which is called the running stitch. Now, lucky for you, it's exactly like the basting stitch. The stitches are just closer together, as you can see here on this paper. Alright, so it's exactly the same. We're going to start in the back of the fabric, pull our needle all the way up, and then we can start stitching. This time the gaps in between our stitches are going to be much smaller. So you kind of have to pay attention where you come back up through the back of the fabric. So once you get the hang of it, you can do the same thing as the basting stitch and load up a few stitches on your needle before pulling it all the way through. You just want to try to get your spacing as closely the same as possible. So you can see here most of my stitches match. So I'm going to keep going until I get to the end, and I want to end in the back of the fabric. So my last stitch will go to the back, and then I can flip it over to tie my knot. Now my knot is going to be exactly the same as the last knot that I created, and I'll show you that in just a second. Okay, here we go. So I make a circle with my yarn and my needle. I'm going to go create that circle, go back under and up through the middle of the circle, hold down with my finger and pull. Remember, if you hold down with your finger, it helps you get it close to the fabric, and then you can snip it right off. Good job. You should have just created a running stitch. Okay, on to stitch number 3, which is a back stitch. This one's going to start the exact same as you come up through the back. Now you're going to make your first stitch like normal, but then your next stitch is going to be a little bit different. So if you flip it over to the back, you're going to stitch back through the top, but you want it to be the same distance as your first stitch. So you can see there how that space is the exact same. Now here's the weird part. Instead of continuing to go forward, you're going to go backwards. So I'm going to go backwards and then go forwards again. And I know that's really tricky, so just keep watching. So back and then forward. So it's going backwards, and now I'm going to do a forward stitch from the back, So if you look at the back, now I'm going to go forwards or go up through the fabric. So now I'm above the stitches I've created. And now I'm going back towards the stitches. So every time you're going to go forwards from the back and then backwards from the front. It's really confusing, but if you just keep watching, you'll get the hang of it. So I'm going up, so I'm created that space, and I'm going to fill that space by going backwards. So just keep watching me if you don't have it yet, and then you can rewind to watch it again. So I'm going to go up to create that space, then I'm going to go backwards down towards my stitches to fill in the space. So create the space and then fill it in. This is why it's called the back stitch. All right, you're going to keep going until you get to the end of your fabric. And when you're ready, you're going to tie a knot in the back. So I'm going to flip over my fabric and tie that exact same knot. Create a circle, come up through the circle, hold tightly, and pull. Take your scissors and trim. And there you have your back stitch in slow motion. So you can see there's no gaps between those stitches. That means you did it right. All right, here we go. You are ready for your fourth stitch. You've already completed 3 and we're on to number 4. All right, number 4 is my favorite. It's called a couching stitch, which is a really funny word because it looks like couching. But we're going to take a string, or sometimes you can use a twig or anything that's straight that you want to add onto your fabric, and we're going to be creating loops to secure it on. So you can see I'm holding the string that I have in place with my left hand. I've come up on the right side of my string and I will go down on the left. So it's just creating like a tight hold on the string. So I'm going to do the same exact thing all the way up through these stitches. So up through the back, down through the front. So your goal here is to create something or create these stitches to hold your string in place. So you can see here it's just going to be loops all the way up that kind of look like brackets that hold on that string. So once you're finished with your last stitch, which I'm getting ready to be, you're going to make sure you stitch to the back, and that's where you will tie your knot. You're going to tie the exact same knot that we have been tying for the past 3 stitches. So you'll create that circle, pull up through the loop, pull tightly, and then trim off the extra thread. All right, whoop whoop. You should be finished and you should have successfully learned 4 new stitches for your embroidery project. Once you've learned these 4 stitches, you'll be able to do your project with ease and with no problems whatsoever. Put your name in the bottom of your square and you'll be all done. Good job.